What is good, everyone? Another mountain bike video here. 2025 is the first season in 5 years for me that is going to be like a proper good season where I can work on technique, I can try and relearn skills. 2019 was the last real giant mountain bike year for me. In between then and now, just a lot of life events and a few injuries and stuff. And I've ridden, but just not consistently. This year, I'm trying really hard to progress and get back up to a level that I used to be and maybe push it further, I don't know, but I grew up riding. I got to race for 8 years, a couple of years as a pro for cross country and Super D. Super D is basically like the precursor to enduro. It was kind of goofy. We would do big Le Mans starts where you would run to your bike. So imagine like 50 people in clipless pedals and like full face helmets and stuff running at a full clip to try and jump on their bike and get down the trail first. It was a lot of fun, and I learned a ton in those years, and a lot has changed, honestly, with the sport. The biggest of which is how much content there is to go watch and to go learn. Frankly, I think watching a bunch of riding is such an exceptional way to absorb and to learn, and this is something you can do on days where you can't get to the trail or it's rainy or whatever. I will throw something out there. Very old DVD, but the tips still hold up. I think it's one of the best pieces of like tutorial content ever made. Fundamentals by Alex Rankin. Alex Rankin made the Earthed films, and they are some of the best mountain bike films ever. Yeah, if you go back and watch them, they're on like old 26ers, and the actual like bikes themselves suck. But the riding is so good. And the Fundamentals DVD was basically the year that Earthed 2 came out. Alex Rankin met with all these pro riders throughout the season. And there's tips on cornering and jumping and pre-jumping and progression and braking. And pretty much all of those tips remain really solid. And it's from the top level racers at the time. You can still find copies of it over on eBay. And I think there may be some uploads floating around on YouTube itself. But if you want to look towards the more modern tip video stuff, Ben Cathro crushes it. The videos he puts out is just, they're so in-depth, such exceptional explanations. And then also watching riding videos, the GoPro POV stuff, the third-person stuff, so you can see the body posture and all of those things. I want to offer one small piece of caution. I have seen some tip videos giving some pretty bad advice regarding techniques. It's rare. It's not often. This platform is incredible, but I would just say obviously cross-reference things, and if one particular like technique, this person is teaching a completely different school of thought on it, be cautious. Just be cautious. I would say the majority of it is just amazing. The other thing that I continually am trying to remind myself of, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It really does stand true for biking. Progression is all about pushing your limits, pushing that edge a little bit further each time, but not sending that edge into orbit. When you push your limit way, way, way beyond your comfort zone, that's often when the big season-ending crashes can happen. That's when injuries typically occur. In fact, speaking of fundamentals, I remember Steve Pete talks about this exact thing with Neil Donahue. They're like sessioning this really cool like pre-jump into right-hand corner and doing it over and over and over again, and basically trying to find out how fast can they go. Where's the limit of the tires? And they keep going until they have a little slide out, and there you go. You know your limit. And that's okay to push and practice and try something over and over and over again, but make sure you're not just full on sending it, hucking it, and pushing crazy outside of your limits. It's really easy to do, especially if you're in a group situation and you're being pushed in that way. You can completely ignore your boundaries or see somebody who's just ripping the trail apart and you're like, I can do that. But you don't see all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes. The rider who just like ripped down that trail and did the drop and the jump or whatever, did the hard line. You don't know how many times they've been up there practicing it. You don't know how many hundreds or thousands of hours they've put into it. And so if you can't ride because you're hurt, you can't progress. You don't want to have the injuries that take you off the bike. Better to have just a small washout or a dab or something like that instead of pushing the limit way too far. I remember when we were racing, everything in downhill, like the Super D stuff, it was all about if you can learn how to corner well, you can pretty much be fast almost anywhere in the world. Everybody on the straights and the rough and the techie stuff is going pretty similar speed once you get to a certain like racing level. But cornering is one of those areas, like you look at the golden age of Sam Hill. No one in the world corners like him. And a lot of that came down to just the most immense sense of control with the back end of the bike. Being able to know when your bike's going to drift out, controlling that drift without, the brake, just the balance point. And a good technique to practice that is cutties and learning how to kind of drift on a dirt road. And once you figure that out, you bring in the braking technique. So right now, this is the area I completely suck at. It's garbage, and I'm really trying to work on it. Trying to brake before the corner, right? If you are rushing into a corner with a ton of speed, and then you start to just mash the brakes midway through the corner, you're going to slow down. And then you'll often see this like with newer riders. They blast in the corner, they stuff the speed in the middle of the turn, and then they try and sprint out of it. Whereas if they would just approach the corner, brake while they're setting up for the turn, let off the brakes during the turn, pump through the turn, you'll leave the corner with way more speed. You won't have to waste the energy of sprinting out of it. And if you're doing any like high speed cornering or flat corners, anytime you grab your front brake while you're cornering, the bike is going to want to stand up, or worse, that little tiny contact patch where your rubber's meeting the dirt is now interacting with a completely opposite bit of friction, and it will wash your front tire out. You've probably had this happen if you're like big flat high speed corner, grab some front brake, your front end is just going to completely wash straight out from under you. The rear brake, still a good tool for control. You can feather that thing, you can use it to blow off a little bit of speed. But if you really ride with somebody who knows how to corner well, who can brake before they get there, pump through the corner, they just are impossible like to hold their wheel. And a great technique for this, again, is looking up like how to do cutties and just practicing those over and over again. And this is an area, the brake control is where the speed truly comes from, and a lot of the actual like safety and stability on the trail, in my opinion. The best way to learn and actually practice this is have a practice trail, something easy, short, and repeatable. Run it over and over and over again. Super good to practice braking, cornering, and if you do it back to back to back, you'll be able to know when you hit a really solid lap. I've got a good 2 or 3 minute little loop that I can do over. Again, I can test settings, I can try all sorts of things. Practicing techniques is a huge part of it, and then when you take it to the trail or something new, you'll have that extra confidence underneath you that you sometimes just don't get if you're always like sight reading a new trail. Other skills that you can practice even when you're not at the trail, track standing. This is where you stand on your bike and don't put a foot down. It's a trials biking technique. It took a long time to learn when I was a kid. I mean, it was like weeks and weeks of practicing this before it finally clicked. But if you can learn how to balance the bike and master the track stand, technical climbs will never be an issue. Slowing down on ultra tech descent stuff is not going to be an issue. It brings up a good point too.
Super cool.
Don't be afraid to walk a section that's beyond your limits, or hike back up and retry something. Slow down, look at the line, really think through your approach. Remy Metallier does this so well. He breaks down what he's thinking about. He takes his time, and granted, he's like one of the sickest riders on the planet. He still will take that time to really get analytical, think it through, and if he's not feeling it, he has the ability to say, yo, not today, I'll come back another time. Listen to your gut. And honestly, the fastest way to progress is to ride with other people, especially if they are better than you. Nothing is a better crash course than being able to watch and learn directly from another rider who's pushing you. But again, remember, don't go crazy. So many group rides, you probably can attest to this. If you've been on a group ride, somebody always crashes, right? If you don't know your limits, if you're being pushed by everybody around you, it's okay to slow down and maybe not send it if you're not ready to do so. Ignore, the other people around you. I think that's basically it. I mean, it sounds really obvious, but eat and fuel well for your ride. Take water, drink water. If it's really hot, the electrolyte drinks are exceptional. The little powders that you stir in. There's all sorts of different brands and stuff for that. And yeah, probably remarkably obvious tips. I know there's not a eureka moment in here, but as I was jotting down my notes, this is basically for me this season. I want to get back to that spot where I'm really pushing, feeling confident, feeling comfortable, and knowing I'm progressing my riding. I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, and definitely would love to hear a comment. What are some of the tips that you think are applicable to all levels of riders? Drop those down below. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.